Hey everyone, so we're going to go over tape measures really quick, and what I have in front of us is three different tape measures. All three are different brand names, and they measure different lengths, but their job is still the same. So if we take this tape measure, for example, this one is made by Pasco, and its maximum length is 25 feet. So if you wanted to measure anything that was 25 feet long, you could do this with this tape measure. And so if we open it up, you can see it's a little rough. This is a very old tape measure. And the first thing you should probably see is that it only measures inches, all right, inches and feet. So this is just a standard imperial rule, or some would say standard measuring tape measure. This one is made by Stanley, so it only measures up to 16 feet. We open this one up. It looks like it can go into a little bit better detail than the last one, but you can still see it only measures in inches and feet. So there's no metric uh, there's no metric on this one. And this one is made by Starrett, and so you can see that this one goes up to 10 feet. But when we open this one up, you can see that it's got inches and feet on one side, and it's got the metric system on the other side. So this one allows us to do both imperial rule, which many refer to as the standard unit of measure, and then we also have the metric system on the other side. So from just that little quick visual on the three different tape measures, you'll kind of see that with all three of them having different maximum lengths, all three were made by different companies. Essentially, their job is the same, to allow you to measure distances or measure dimensions on certain pieces of material. Now, if you've ever used a ruler, it's the exact same concept. All right, this ruler is your standard 12-inch ruler. The only difference between this ruler and these tape measures is that this ruler maxes out at 1 foot, 12 inches. These extend past that. So these can measure up to several feet. And if we take a look at this small steel rule, so this one is 6 inches, it's the exact same thing. If you've ever used a ruler, this is the same concept. All right, this one might break it down into a little bit smaller increments of measure. All right. And then we've got these two steel rulers down here. People refer to these as machinist rulers or sometimes engineering rulers because they get really down into the small units of measure. So these get into the more detailed and tight tolerances that you would see engineers working on or machinists working on. And so these actually have another feature where instead of measuring, by quarters, eighths, sixteenths, 30 seconds, and so on, these can measure in tenths, 100ths, and I've never seen them, but I've heard that some can go down to thousandths of an inch. But again, I've never seen those, and you'll probably never use those as a welder, but these are good to have in your pocket. Just if you don't have a tape measure handy and you just need to measure something that's kind of small, you can whip this out really quick, get a quick measurement, throw it right back in your pocket. But I always try to have at least one tape measure in my bag, in my tool bag, because you never know what you're going to encounter on a job site. All right, so there's a couple of features on tape measures that you might not be aware of if the only measuring tool you've ever used was a ruler. So if we look at the front of this tape measure, you'll see that there's this eyelet or this notch that's been cut out, okay? This piece doesn't quite have it, but it's got this little notch cut in at the bottom. And if we look at this tape measure, this one doesn't have it at all. So we've got even more differences when it comes to these tape measures. Now, the only real reason that these tape measures would have a cutout in this tab is if this tape measure can be used by carpenters or pretty much anyone that works with nails or screws. The reason for that is if you were trying to get a measure on something and there happened to be a nail in a piece of material, you can hook this tab onto the nail or onto the screw, and it would effectively hold this tape measure in place while you go ahead and extend out to get your measurement. Now you'll notice that it kind of goes in and out freely, so it's under tension and it wants to pull back into itself. Every tape measure is going to have some sort of a switch, all right, some sort of a button. And if we were to extend this out, we can push this down and it stays out. So it's not going to slide it back in until I return it to its open position. Then it's going to slide in. Now there's one more feature to a tape measure that is very crucial, and I'm going to go to this one because this is a newer tape measure, so it's not really worn in, so you're going to get a better visual on it. Let me go ahead and just lock this in place. All right, so this tab on the end, if you look real closely, you'll see that it moves just slightly. So the reason for this is not to, give you a little oopsie daisy and throw your measurements off. It's actually to help your measurements. So if you were to measure starting from the outside edge of a piece, this tab moves. That way it allows you to get a more accurate measurement. Just the same if you were to measure on the inside of an object, say if you were trying to get the inside diameter of something, this tab would push in just a little bit. Now over time, if you don't take care of your tape measure, if you just unlock it and just let it slide in super fast, over time it's going to wear these rivets and those holes, and your tab's going to move a lot more, which will throw off your measurement. So the I would say an appropriate method of closing or allowing the tape to retract back into your tape measure from a locked position is to kind of set your finger right here at the base of the opening of the tape measure. So when you unlock it, you kind of have a little tension from placing your finger against the tape measure, and you just let it slide. Let that tab catch your finger, and then go ahead and let it slide into the tape measure. That is probably the best way to prevent wear and tear on these rivets and the holes in the tab. That way it doesn't end up sliding too far over time and with long periods of use.